Want more positivity in your life? Subscribe, turn on notifications, follow us, and all that techie stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Comment, share, or give us a thumbs up. We are grateful to have you hanging out with us at Matt Logan Speaks.
Well, we are in a humid environment celebrating the last few days of what I'm going to call the extended fall. I'm here with one of my good friends, Jes Peterson. Welcome to our sauna.
I'm sweating.
Yes. And so I was trying to think of where we actually met, and I'm thinking of a friend's gathering on the rooftop, and I feel like that's where we may have started.
Of co-op.
Yes,
that is where we met.
So I love that a lot of the people that I've met on the podcast have been random people that I've met. And I mean random, not just like I walk by a bar and whatever. But there's such a great collaboration of networking in, the city and area. And I've opened myself up to say, okay, whoever. I'm going to go meet people intentionally with similar interests. Has that kind of been where you've started?
Coffee, lunch, happy hour.
Yeah.
I would love to connect. How would you like to do it?
Have you always been that way, or was that like a transition period where you're like, this is now my job to meet people, or?
I do kind of get paid to do that now, but it's kind of always been my thing, like standing in the grocery line and just talking to the lady in front of you and your kids being like, I'm so embarrassed. Who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? I don't know.
They're people. I think there's such a weird, wall people put up, especially now that we can't have the same normal conversations. So where I feel like we were making progress, all of a sudden it became weird again. Do you feel like that?
Yes. Well, because there's no hugs, no handshake.
Yes.
It's almost like don't make eye contact for that person. They might talk to you and you don't have your mask on and, whatever. Yeah.
You can't even tell if people are smiling. I know you can see the smile through your eyes or what have you, but I feel like it's pretty, difficult to really get a read on people now in terms of how they're responding.
I always worry what other people are reading of me. Can you see my eyes smiling? Because I am smiling at you. Maybe? No?
Well, that resting face, really doesn't move much at the top for me, so I feel like I look angry all the time. But I think that people's walls are just up and guarded more so than before. And I think that's something that we've all tried to work around for a long time. What's the norm? Here's who I'm supposed to be. Do you think that's coming back in its own way with this season that we're in?
I think, yes. Everyone is, I mean, even if you're an extrovert and outgoing or an extrovert introvert, even an awesome introvert, however you like to, portray yourself, there's always that sense of nervousness. So now it's am I making this person uncomfortable with even being in the room?
Sure.
Or even with your coworkers.
Right.
We have the sneeze guards, we're wearing masks. I might, run to the restroom, leave the restroom without my mask on. I'm like, oh gosh, is that going to upset someone? Or maybe a customer came in and we weren't wearing our masks.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, scramble to get our, you just, you never know who's
okay without
it, and should we be okay without it? Probably not.
Right.
Even if you do feel comfortable with someone, there's that level of, yes, I'm comfortable with you, but we should probably be doing this anyway.
Yeah. I think everyone has those thoughts constantly running through their head.
Yes.
Even if they feel compelled to hug somebody, right? Okay, are you cool? Are we good? Have you had a test lately? Can we be in public like this?
Can we be? Or even if you're cool, I'm cool, let's do it. Then afterwards, there's a level of guilt.
Yeah. It's a weird shame thing. And I understand the health suggestions and precautions and the safety measures all behind that.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it has introduced an entirely new level of shame, both what you feel internally and what people are putting on other people about those choices. Do you see that in your everyday interactions? Or
Absolutely. Definitely, you meet a stranger and we all have our masks on and we go about our lives in our masks, and that's all great and fine and good. And then we get around our good friends or people we know and we trust you, right? So being that we have this level of trust, we don't have to wear a mask.
That's interesting.
COVID doesn't care about trust.
Yeah.
It's going to pass from family member to family member friend to
Right.
friend. I'm not worried about the person at Walgreens. You know,
That's a really
that's
good
not where
point.
you're going to get it. It's going to be the friend of a friend that got it from their coworker's sister's
Right.
cousin's boyfriend. I don't know. You know, but
Yeah.
because we feel so comfortable around each other.
It's like a weird security thing, like
Right.
in almost like the opposite way. So I feel like you feel more secure in that you don't have to show the world your true face, but at the same time, you let your guard down for the real reason that you should need the security.
Right. Right.
So it's almost like the opposite.
Well, and I was just reading something today that said, like, if you live with someone, you don't need to mask up. Well, I go out in the world every day. My partner goes out in the world every day. We see
Right.
entirely random people throughout our day, coworkers,
Yep.
clients, passerbys, and then we come home.
And you don't think twice about it.
Well, no, but
You know?
CDC says you do not have to wear masks in your home around your family members.
Does it have the caveat, like, if those things are, you know, followed outside? Because you would think, like,
That I haven't read.
You know?
I don't know. But it seems to me like we would. But my one friend that did get COVID, his wife never got it, and his little person never got it. So he tested positive. His wife went and got a test. He quarantined for 14 days. She never got it.
we all, and it just creates this weird fear and uncomfortability. And I think more people than ever are experiencing that anxiety, that panic, that stress, that depression, all of those things that I feel like maybe, you know, were already there. People are masking behind and almost over isolating. And then there's new people that are introduced to that realm. Like, what's been your experience with, you know, anything on either side?
Well, I'm terrified of winter coming, which we kind of started this end of February. It was
Yes.
just a hot topic. And then shutdown, I believe, was
Like
was it
March?
St. Patty's Day? The
It was
day
like
before,
March
the day
13th.
after,
For some
something.
reason, that day
I know,
sticks in my head. It was the last day that I remember doing something normal.
right? So February is always my worst. Like, I've just had it. I'm gonna cry, and I'm ready for the sads to be over. Well,
Yeah.
we're moving into that season, and again, talking about isolation. We're already isolated in the winter. What is that going to look like?
Yeah. What do you see, like, in people that have normal, like, seasonal depression or, you know, normal, like, anxiety, depression? Like, what do you think has changed or is, like, the biggest risk or things that we need to think about, like, as
It could
we're
go
thinking about other people?
could go a couple of ways. Like, I remember last February asking my best friend, I'm like, didn't see you all weekend. What'd you do last Saturday? She's like, I cried. I'm like, oh my God, me too. Awesome. Because we were just like so sick of being home.
Yeah.
Well, are we just used to isolation now? Have we
Gosh,
found
that's a
other
good
ways
point.
to cope? Even though, I mean,
Or are
we
we talking about it less?
I don't know. We've
know,
been
that's-
able to at least enjoy the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a beautiful summer and, like you
Right.
said, beautiful fall so far. Either way, winter is not fun, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be challenging. Distance learning,
Yeah. Let's not
people
talk
working. I know. I won't bring it up. I didn't mean to
No
bring
more.
it up.
But
yeah.
isolation is really interesting because, you know, like, it's used in all sorts of different terms. You know, you isolate things to really figure out what the problem is, or you isolate things to, like, you know, set things apart or whatever. We're talking about people's mental health. And, you know, I think one of the things that's typical of someone in those things is they're already shameful. They're already struggling. They already self-isolate. Is that pretty common? Like, or is that kind of a myth?
No, I don't think it's a myth. And I've had this conversation with a lot of folks. As an outgoing person, I don't isolate. But the people that are in isolation and do have anxiety and are ready, and for lack of better terms, like scared to leave the house, well, guess what? Now you can't.
Right.
Now you can't leave your house, which
a whole
there's a
level
level of comfort. But instead of other people trying to pull that person out of their shell, we're also isolating.
Yeah.
So it's easy to just get stuck in your bubble of isolation and get sucked into that depression. And I'm terrified of that. That's been like
Yeah.
my biggest fear through COVID. Like, I'm not scared of getting it.
Yeah.
If I get it,
Right.
hopefully all is well in the world. There's a pretty good chance we will, according to what we've been reading. But it's the folks that really struggle with their mental health.
Yeah.
And some of those things that really does worry me through this.
For sure. And I think, too, like, I mean, I myself have, I would say, like, there's been the almost like 7 stages of grief, like going through this between March and now, sort of starting all over again. But, you at first like, okay, this is fine. We'll have a little extra time. We can simplify life. We're going to get to know each other better. And then you're like, get out of my face. I hate you, And then you're sitting on the floor in the bathroom crying because you can't stand anybody anymore. Like, I think for any normal person, like, that's been the normal. And then I can't even imagine adding on, those different, like, layers of things. I've seen, in myself, and I think intentionally those people that are thinking about how are other people doing, like, that's probably who's surviving best, because most people that don't experience depression and anxiety on a regular basis won't even mention it.
Right.
I feel like some of the people that struggle the worst don't really mention it.
They never reach out.
Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, and I think it's people like yourself and myself that love to talk to people and reach out to people need to remember to reach out to those people that we know won't ask for help, or maybe we know that they have or potentially could be struggling with depression. Sure. I think it's kind of our job to reach out to them.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard for them to reach out for us, no matter the circumstances.
Yeah.
So now we have double reason to reach out.
Agreed. Do you find people are doing that more? I mean, are people assuming that? I mean, I know personally, like, I have worked to, like, I'll make a list of people just to remind myself, but then I also get so stuck in my bubble that I'm like, is it Tuesday, Saturday? I really don't know.
Well, and who'd I forget?
Right. Or, like, gosh, we had a new employee start, and I was like, oh, like, how's it going? What's it been? Like, about a month and a half? He's like, yeah, 3. I'm like,
6, 9.
So sorry. Like, it's like not someone you work with all the time. You don't pass them getting coffee, and,
right.
Like, you just don't know they exist, in your everyday jumble. But I think that's important. Do you think enough people are doing that these days? I mean, do we need to get more awareness out there of what people might be struggling with mental health wise?
I think getting more awareness, definitely, because we all get sucked into our own lives too.
Yeah.
I mean, I have children, you have
For
children,
sure.
I go to work, you go to work. You've got plenty of extracurricular activities I know you're involved in. So it's easy to just, it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's a week ago Tuesday that I thought about said
That's so
person
true,
and I haven't reached out yet. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will make sure that I get to them by Friday.
And you always assume that, I'm sure it'll be fine. Or, I was like, if 100 people assume the same thing about the same person,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, that's where things get, like, left in the dark. And that's been scary, even just thinking about at the kids level. I've had some behavior issues with my son. And, I'm trying to remind myself, like, he has no clue what's going on.
Right.
He has no reason to believe that anything is normal anymore or that anything is secure. You know, he has to wear a mask, and then he goes to school, and then he comes back to school, and now he can't go to school. And, I'm like, whew. I mean, I have wine, but these poor children, like, they're going through their own, coaster of things, of emotions. And, it's interesting to look at it from a small child's perspective, but think that that's also happening at adult levels where people are just feeling like, I don't know what to do with these emotions.
Don't you think little people are a little more pliable in their thoughts, feelings, actions, where this is normal? Or we call it the new norm.
I think they become more accepting of it, but I don't think that they're processing the emotion of it.
No.
As most people aren't. Really, I believe that most people are still stuck. I'm fine. I'm cool. I got this. Whatever, or even like I don't have it, I'm giving up, whatever, but they're just not able to pull through, that needle of emotion to move forward. It just gets like built up.
And I was talking to someone today briefly about, I'm like, think of people aged, 5 to 25 right now. Mm-hmm. And they're still trying to discover themselves and figure themselves out. So, you're not emotionally prepared to drive a car until you're 25, right? Or is it 27 now?
I don't know. But I don't want my daughter
to rent a car. So what are these younger people and next generations? What are they thinking? And what are the mental repercussions of now.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect your son when he's 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on and so forth? Mm-hmm. So that, I don't know why I'm even thinking about that, but that's been something that's been on my mind
It's been
a lot.
interesting because I feel like I'm a pretty positive person, like look at the
Absolutely.
glass half full, and I'm like, okay, well, I have spent more time with my kids, even when they're driving me nuts, I'm still learning more about them.
Yeah.
And learning how to adapt to managing teams online and working with people online. At the same time that there are people that are just struggling like to even function through those, distance learning or working remotely, and the impact of not being able to succeed on a consistent basis. I mean, that's scary. Like that's where I feel like we're going to see some major struggles with people as we move through this.
For sure.
What else is out there that you feel like we're still missing, when it comes to, mental health? Because a lot of times in the recent suicides that I don't want to say been a part of, but been aware of and know people in that, it's like, I never would have thought, or I thought it was, everything was fine, or I can't believe that they did this, or, what are some of the things that people's responses to those are that feel like we're just missing exactly what was the struggle of them?
I don't think anyone will know. I
Yeah.
don't think those questions ever get answered. And there's a ton of resources as to you should be looking for this or you should be looking for that. Well, I'm not a therapist. I'm just your friend.
Yeah.
And that's why you hear that. Like, well, I just was out with them Friday night. Everything, we had a blast. Everything was great. We had dinner, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. You just never know. And the scary part of one of the big things of suicide is maybe I talked you down today. Mm-hmm. Will I be there tomorrow?
Sure.
Will those resources be there? I think once somebody gets it stuck in their head, it's really, really difficult to overcome. Mm-hmm. And I don't know a solid answer as to how you
If anything
overcome
makes
thoughts
that,
of
yeah.
suicide. There are plenty of resources out there. There is a 988 number, which won't be in effect for 2 years.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why it takes a long time. But they, when people are in such a state of having suicidal thoughts and things, there's a 1-800 number you can call, but who,
Yeah.
can remember that. So
Right.
the 988 is pretty cool. Again, it's 2 years out, so I don't know what that looks like. But I did write the 1-800 number is 1-800-273-8255. So there is that
Sure.
resource now you can call.
And what does that resource provide? Like when you're in a
Someone
state
to
of
talk
like
to.
the middle ground of
The people are trained to know when to call 911
Sure.
and when to try to get you that help. I've personally never called it.
Mm-hmm.
I've just heard what they kind of look for in verbiage for people.
Yeah.
Try to get like, well, what's your mom's name? What's her number? Let's get them involved.
I think that's important too to understand like that line, because I think to an untrained person, when anyone talks about not wanting to be here anymore or, whatever that looks like, whatever that commentary is,
You're not
your
just-
immediate reaction is like, okay, then we need to go do something, when
Not
maybe
just
that's not
anyone
what they
can
need.
run the hotlines. You definitely need to be trained to de-escalate and handle those situations.
It's always like hard, like I think the other hard part is the personal responses where people feel their own sense of guilt or need to fix things, so it's not necessarily you're making progress with someone.
It's not
but,
that bad.
Right. I mean, what kind of like, things do you see or even like hear people say that just are not even, real, like they're not helpful, or it becomes personal, I think, sometimes. Like,
My biggest thing that I have said 1,000 times is put your big girl panties on.
yeah. And I'm one for that too. And that's a hard thing to like.
But I'm that person, so it's tough for me to
Yeah.
understand and to be a little more sensitive to that.
Right.
Sometimes I've grown more sensitive to that over the years,
Sure.
because it's not that easy to get out of your rut once you're stuck there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, sometimes when people are seeking help, you have your people, right? You have your comfort person, you have your hard love person, you know. I feel like that is fairly common, you know that this person's going to probably agree with you and be like, yeah, you are doing everything you can, you know, that kind of person. And then you have the other person that's like, you need to shut this down and pick yourself up and let's, you know. I think there's room for both.
There's room for both. And I think it's tough to ask for that help.
Yeah.
So being that person that's feeling that way, you're definitely not in your right mind. You're definitely not like, I need help.
Right.
You're just so in that mode of everything. The world sucks. Life sucks. Work sucks.
Do you feel like it's always a rut? Do you feel like, you know, there's multiple factors? Like, part of me is trying to, like, understand the mindset, right? Like, for me as a mom, I see somebody with kids, and I'm like, I just don't get it. I don't get how you could do that to someone else. You know, like, what do you...
But it's not doing it to someone else.
That's something that people say or think, right? Like, I like your perspective on it. So share kind of where your thought process is with that.
Well, life is a roller coaster. And it's... I don't know how the poem goes, but it talks about something, how life is amazing and how it can get you down. And then life is amazing again. Like, don't forget how amazing life can be. But again, it's easy to get stuck in that rut of... you know, nobody loves me. I'm alone in this world. Financial issues, isolation, breakups,
right?
You know, divorces, kids going back and forth throughout all that is really hard on a human. And the internet is not easy on our children and us. You know, we are looking for likes and shares as much as they are. And that is creating a whole new level of anxiety and hopelessness in our youth, and that's really scary to deal with as well.
I think that's a huge thing too, and one that makes us, you know, makes me nervous about, you know, social media in general is, you know, there's a lot of false information being put out there right now, right? And so we're having this expectation, even when you see somebody crying out for help, you're like, oh, they're just doing it for attention, or oh, somebody else will closer might say something or whatever. So we just like scroll past things that are like,
I will admit to not reaching out to some people I should have for lack of what to say.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I don't know you that well. What do I say? How do I talk you down? I don't know the right words, you know? And then there's other people I know very well that I also don't know the right words. And there's other people that I just pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah.
I don't know what compels either way, because you don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And try to talk them down or give them a resource, and, you know, suicide happens anyway.
Yeah. And it's always, you know, like in my head, you know, like, okay, I can be the cheerleader and positive promoter and, you know, what have you. And they're just like, you know, there's a scary place that it, once, like you said, once it gets to that point that there's no return.
And some people don't want a cheerleader.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's not going to get any better. Some people want you to just cry with them.
Right.
You know what? The world sucks sometimes.
Right.
And it's okay to say that too.
Yeah.
But it's know your audience. How do you
so
know your
rules.
audience?
I know one thing that my dad always says, you know, is how can I help? You know, and I feel like that approach, question, tone, all in one sort of
I like it.
Is a de-escalator a little bit, and it just makes you stop and think. It doesn't say, you know, okay, they're trying to tell me everything's going to be okay when I believe differently, and it's not telling, you know, you to just turn around how you're feeling. You know, it just makes you stop and like kind of rewire your train track a little bit.
Somebody brought one to my attention that was similar, and it was tell me more.
Yes.
Love that.
That is one, I think,
tell me
in
more.
Any conversation,
tell
whether
me more.
It's, you know,
tell me more.
A suicidal thought process or not, anytime that someone's upset or, you know, getting more out of people starts to loosen and unravel a little bit.
Yep.
You know, even when people ask why, which I hate the question why, and it's only because my kids ask that a lot.
A little different, but yes.
Parent can relate. But, you know, trying to get deeper into the levels of, you know, people like, I don't have a why. I don't have, you know, that big passion motivator. And I'm like, yeah, everyone does. When you get into it, you've just trained your brain to answer immediately. So those first two questions that you ask, typically, okay, why is that? Tell me more. Why is that? Tell me more. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I did this exercise. There's like 7 layers of this. I might
need to do that with you.
And it was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. You know, like you sort of get things embedded so deeply within you that your automated answers, and then, you know, you can finally like get to the root of it. But, you know, I've had conversations with people that are very, you know, hopeless or just misguided, really, you know, and can't really see, you know, that light. And while you can't fix everything, you know, I'm like, okay, what can I do? How can I help?
Right. Now, one question I hate is like, what are your 1, 3, and 5 goals? Every time I have
survive
a 1, 3, and 5 goal, I'm like, well, on my way to goal number 1, yeah. Then the world takes a crap and everything is off track. And I'm like, well, what is the point of even having a goal? Mm-hmm. Every time I make some 2020 was going to be my year.
I ripped out my entire vision board. Oh, no. My entire vision board I had like up in my office. And I know this sounds like a pretty childish thing to do, but I'm like, it's been a struggle for me. Like, honest to God, there have been days that I've just sat and cried. And there have been days that I'm like, I got this whole plan. And then something else goes, you know, whatever. And I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm losing my mind.
It's okay to rip up your vision board. It's okay to break stuff.
Right.
Within reason. I broke something yesterday. My partner was like, I can't believe you broke that. What were you thinking? I said, it's my thing.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't care about that said thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw it in the garbage now.
Right.
I just felt better.
Yeah. Sometimes whatever that release is, you know, like for me, you know, it sounds like that, like whatever doesn't serve you, like that's kind of what it was. I'm like, it was a reminder of like, well, this race was canceled and speaking engagements are no longer a thing. Mm-hmm. And this goal's never going to happen. And I'm like, why? Why keep it up? Why keep looking at it? You know, and I think sometimes we just get on this track of what our life is supposed to be and we cannot forgive the difference.
Yes.
And I find that a lot, you know, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that aren't suicidal, but I think are in that middle mode where they're like, I can't admit that I'm like a depressed person or I don't have my crap together.
Sure.
But I'm also not going to ask for help, you know, like it's a hard ground.
Don't forget to be perfect for the strangers on the internet today.
Right. Right. And everyone's comparing themselves to somebody else. Every single person. You know,
and you can't. And even every person you're comparing yourself to and every single person that you think is perfect, they go home and they rip up their vision boards and they are not perfect.
You heard it first
and
here.
They yell at their children and their partners, and we're all the same.
Yeah.
Some people maybe hide it a little better, but I know even when I see somebody I look up to and I think they're perfect, I will have to remind myself that they're not.
Yeah.